It's election season and we're all exhausted. I get it. But there's a few things I want to talk about today. So, grab a glass of water or beer or your Diet Mountain Dew and let's get started. I've even got talking points today because there's a lot. So, we're currently electing a new sheriff where I live. And I come from a long line of law enforcement people in my family. So my father, as you know, worked for the sheriff's department. My stepdad worked as a cop and then as a registered nurse for the sheriff's department in the county jail while I was growing up. But recently I've started learning, my dad died in 2018, and I started wanting to pour over our family history because there are a lot of questions I didn't get answered that I asked or wanted to ask or didn't think to ask until after he passed. And so I just started gathering all the information I could, and I've been finding out a lot about my great-grandfather on my mom's side. And I've come across a lot of news articles about him that I wanted to share because it ties into this election theme. So he was a sheriff in a small town in Texas for 22 years. And he died a year before I was born, so I never got to meet him. But he was beloved in the community, him and my great-grandmother, Gigi. I did grow up knowing her and visiting her, and she was just a phenomenal woman. So they lived at the courthouse, which the courthouse also served as the jail. So my great-grandmother would cook dinner for her family and also for everyone in the jail. So whatever they ate that night, the prisoners ate too. That just kind of gives you an idea of what my family was like. Now, my great-grandfather's nickname as sheriff was Blackie. We don't know why. I'm kind of glad I don't know why. They were great people, but like I said, we all have ugly in our past, and I have family from the South, so there's some racism involved, I'm sure. But from what I can gather, my great-grandfather and my great-grandmother were loved in the community. And I wanted to share an article about his bid for re-election for sheriff because I read it and I was like, oh, this is the best little thing ever. I don't know if he wrote it. I don't think he did. But there was a poem that was sent out on a postcard. So I've got this little article, and he sent it out as his bid for re-election. So here it goes. Now, the sheriff's job is a curious one. Like the housewife's work, it's never done. Calls come by night and come by day. They may be near or miles away. Do hurry up, says the voice of the caller. You're badly needed in Possum Holler. Pa's on a rampage. He's got a gun. Been looking for Ma since 1:30. So we jump in our flivver, hit the trail, and drive like a streamliner carrying the mail. Our only hope and all we can figure is to be on hand before Pa pulls the trigger. We finally arrive amid confusion. We learn the affair was a simple delusion. Pa with his gun was just hunting squirrels. Ma had gone to school with the two oldest girls. Next day, we're hunting a mottle-faced cow. That night, we referee a nice family row. Now that's just a sample of what we do, an endless variety of the old and the new. It may be a prowler, a burglar, a drunk. He may steal your billfold, your watch, or your trunk. We set out to catch him, and we do our best. We catch our percentage and lose the rest. We can't catch them all, for some leave no clue. They don't leave their cards like the candidates do. Sometimes they plead guilty and the judge will scold. Then half the country will want them paroled. They blame the Depression, the New Deal, the tariff, but most of the folks put the blame on the sheriff. So it's quite a game. If you stay right in, you'll get a pat on the back and a sock on the chin. But I like it, and I'm shedding no tears, and I'd like to be your sheriff for another 2 years. Voters chose to re-elect Blackie many times. How sweet is that? No threats. No, there's going to be a bloodbath, quoting Trump, if he's not re-elected. Just a poem. And I thought, how cool is that? That's how elections should be. That's how they can be again. A poem, a song about freedom. They're so exhausting now. And elections shouldn't feel like life or death anymore. So it just made me really nostalgic for the good old days that I remember. Because I grew up learning about politics because of my dad. So, I wanted to share another article about my great-grandfather while he was sheriff. Through 33 years in law enforcement, 22 as sheriff, I've been in several tight spots over 30 years. I've never been hurt, but I've been shot at 2 or 3 times. But he's never used a gun on anybody. Quote, I had a fellow pull a gun on me one time, but I talked him out of it. End quote. He talked him out of it. A sheriff with a gun, who was having a gun pointed at him, talked him out of it. In our culture, it's shoot first now, ask questions later. And I know we live in a different time, but just the humanity that my great-grandfather, I'm sure, showed a lot of people, whether they were in jail or on the street. He just, from what I can gather, was a decent man. So, if he was around and he was running for sheriff right now, I'd vote for him in a heartbeat. So my dad gave me my first taste of politics when I was 10 years old. So he was going to a rally for George Bush Sr.'s campaign, and he took me with him. And it was a big crowd, and I couldn't see the stage or anybody on it, so he put me on his shoulders, and we kind of moved our way through the crowd up a little bit because everybody felt sorry for the tiny girl who couldn't see. And then I saw one of the Secret Service agents come over. At least that's what I gathered. He was in a black suit and looked really official. So he came over and he gave me a pen, and it was a gold pen. It was a circle and then had a long stick and a little protector at the end so I didn't get poked. And on the back of it, so the front of the pen had the presidential seal, and on the back of the pen was etched his signature. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world. I was like, I've got something from the President of the United States. So I kept that pen for years. It's since been lost, but I still remember it. It made quite the impression. And as I got older and I got into college, I started learning how to think for myself. And I started developing my own political views and personal values, and they didn't align with my dad's a lot. And so we just agreed to disagree on a lot of things. But while I was in college, I was studying social work, and I was part of a group called Grassroots Organizing, GROW for short. And we did several protests while I was in that organization. So we went to Iowa to protest factory farms because we were in rural America, and it was a chicken farm. And as we were driving, you could see all the little family farms dotted around this huge, massive factory farm that stunk like crazy. You could smell it miles away. And these family farms were complaining that the water was being contaminated, the air was being contaminated, and they were just being assaulted by the smell. And more importantly, they were being choked out by these big factory farms. They couldn't even make a living anymore. So I did that. And then we went to Texas because President George Bush Jr. was president, and there were some economic policies we didn't agree with. And we went down there to his ranch to give him an invitation to attend an economic conference on poverty and homelessness. And he wasn't there, but we walked up and down the driveway anyway, and we were flanked the whole time by troopers on horseback with their rifles drawn, and it was quite the show. It was pretty intense for a few moments, but everybody was okay, and we knew everybody was going to go home safe that day. So it was no big deal. But this is me that day. So I did that, and what I can say is I can guarantee you President Bush wasn't taking names that day. He didn't have anybody else taking names either. Finding out where we lived or where our kids went to school so he could threaten us or send his goons to threaten our lives or burn down our house. We were allowed to move freely, and it was just okay. We knew we were going to survive another day. But you know who has been taking names since 2016? Trump. Well, he's been taking names. You know, back then we didn't have the reach we do now. We didn't have, the internet wasn't so big that, you know, the reach was far and wide, and you weren't really stalked online or bullied online yet. But now there's so much information out there, and people can be found so easily. So we now have a former president who is taking names, has been for a long time, and threatening anybody who wants to go against him. So even promising, you know, the bloodbath if he doesn't get elected, which I 100% believe him. But are we going to let a tyrant threaten us like that again? I don't think so. So in 2021, I watched as former President Bush got behind Obama, former President Obama and former President Clinton. I think it was January 20th, to talk about the peaceful transfer of power and how they were trying to unify people, that even though you don't agree on everything, we still need to get along. And they made a valiant effort, although, you know, a riot had just happened at the Capitol on January 6th, and tensions were high, but I admired them for doing that, and I admired former President George Bush for doing that. That's the way it should be. So I wanted to read you. So it's customary for an outgoing president to write a letter to the incoming president. And I wanted to read you two. One is from President Bill Clinton to President-elect George Bush in 2001. And it says, Dear George, today you embark on the greatest venture, with the greatest honor that can come to an American citizen. Like me, you are especially fortunate to lead our country in a time of profound and largely positive change, when old questions, not just about the role of government, but about the very nature of our nation, must be answered anew. You lead a proud, decent, good people, and from this day you are president of all of us. I salute you and wish you success and much happiness. The burdens you now shoulder are great, but often exaggerated. The sheer joy of doing what you believe is right is inexpressible. My prayers are with you and your family. Godspeed. Sincerely, Bill. And then on January 20th, 2009, this is a letter from President George W. Bush to President-elect Barack Obama. Dear Barack, congratulations on becoming our president. You have just begun a fantastic chapter in your life. Very few have had the honor of knowing the responsibility you now feel. Very few know the excitement of the moment and the challenges you will face. There will be trying moments. The critics will rage. Your friends will disappoint you. But you will have an almighty God to comfort you, a family who loves you, and a country that is pulling for you, including me. No matter what comes, you will be inspired by the character and compassion of the people you now lead. God bless you. Decent people, decent men. You know what President Biden got? He got the refusal of transfer of power and the cherry on top, an insurrection at the Capitol, a violent riot at the Capitol. That's what he was handed. No love letter, no good luck, no congratulations. A big fuck you is what he got. And that's what we're gonna get if he gets elected. And I honestly don't believe he will. I believe most of us are decent people who can agree to disagree and be okay. So, after my dad died, I found these pictures. I don't even know. This was after President Obama got elected. It's May 12th of 2010. I found a bunch of these. He must have gone to a speech or something. And I know that he voted for McCain. So I was kind of confused to find these, but pleasantly surprised, because that means that my dad still respected whoever it was that was president. Maybe not, okay, maybe respected is pushing it, but I don't know. But anyway, when this guy was in office, I'd just walk by the TV and hear that voice, that undeniable voice, and think, oh, there he is. Okay. And then I'd go make dinner. I was like, this guy's got us. We're gonna be okay. So that's how I feel. We need somebody that's gonna help us feel okay again. I'm a lifelong Democrat. I will be. I'm unapologetic about it. This party isn't perfect. No party is perfect. And I can understand why some people disagree with the policies. I'm a single mom, but I would happily pay more taxes so the kid down the street eats tonight. That's just who I am. But I've also seen the other side where, somebody who owns a small business wants to keep what they work so hard for. But I do believe in taking care of other people. And I do believe that we can get back with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, we can get our country back. We can get our humanity back. We can get our common sense of decency back. Whether we're Republican or Democrat, we can still have a meal together. Trump incited a riot at the Capitol in 2021. In 2024, he promises a bloodbath. Is that the kind of leader we want? No. Who says that? Who does that? He does. Tim Walz is the VP nominee for Harris. The new word that the Trump camp has coined for him is Tampon Tim, simply because he helped pass a law that ensures every school has to have tampons for menstruating young women and girls. That's it. They're mocking his kindness. What is this? Preschool? Middle school? Are you kidding me? And that's innocent. That's the most innocent thing I've heard from that camp. And not talking about policy, not talking about what they're going to fight for. I wouldn't believe them anyway. Wouldn't believe a word they say anyway. But I believe that elections need to be decent and fair, and they could possibly be fun again. Because right now it's just terrifying. A convicted felon should not even be able to run for president. But here we are. But we have a chance to make a change, and whether you agree with all of Vice President Harris's policies, I know she's for freedom. I know she's for kindness. I know she would work for everybody. Trump is only going to work for himself and his rich friends. Pay attention to who supports him. And vote. Vote with your dollars. Vote with your time and attention. Vote at the polls. But please vote to get our humanity back, to get our country back. We've still got a lot of work to do. It's not going to be a magic bullet on November 6th, but it's a great start. So anyway, I know we're exhausted. I feel like we just did this. Elections don't need to be this long. This is torturous. But at least we have somebody we can look at on the TV and think, man, I think they kind of like us. Instead of, holy shit, I think that guy might want to kill us. Hang in there.